Well, we need to talk about the good news emerging day by day around COVID. And is this actually moving away from being a crisis into something, just another thing that we learn to live with it? I've got a strong feeling that the crisis, we're way past the worst. We're on the downslope now. I don't know how long that will be, but I'm bravely, I hope not going to regret this, I'm calling it. We're past the worst, and actually 2022 is going to be a year of facing different challenges. All of the key data is in the right directions. And for me, the absolute key data are the number of people in ICU and the number of sad deaths. And both of those metrics are either flat or falling on a 7-day basis. So that is good news. And that's why I'm slightly surprised that the Prime Minister is still semi-scaremongering by continually referring to cases. I mean, call me and tell me anecdotally people you know who've had COVID, Omicron in the last few days. But I know a number of people, and actually their symptoms have been really relatively mild. But let me know your symptoms, 0344 499 1000. And isn't it interesting to hear the change in tone from some of the experts, the scientists, the SAGE members? For example, Sir John Bell from the government vaccine task force, he said that people are spending less time in hospital. They don't need full amounts of oxygen. The average stay now in hospital is around 3 days. It was much, much more than that, sort of 7 to 10 days. And in a sense, he said that actually the days of those horror times of mass deaths are history. That's very significant. And then Professor Paul Hunter from the University of East Anglia, he said this disease is not going away. Well, we know that. The infection is not going away, so we have to learn to live with it, don't we? He then went on to say, but we're not going to see it as severe for much longer. And ultimately, and this is the key thing, ultimately he said, we're going to have to let people go about normal lives as if they've got a cold. And this is where I think the debate is going to go. And I was also interested in, and quite encouraged actually, that someone like Chris Hobson, Chief Executive of NHS Providers, who's always been banging the drum concerns about the NHS being overwhelmed and protected it, even he admitted that actually many people arriving in hospital are arriving with other illnesses. And even he finally admitted, heaven knows why it's taken him so long, given how close he is to the system, he finally admitted that the statistics don't differentiate properly between those arriving with a bad case of COVID and those arriving for some other illness who happen to catch COVID in hospital. I can't understand why it's taken so long, but I think this is really significant. And you've likewise got even a SAGE epidemiologist. I mean, this is significant. When a SAGE epidemiologist, Professor Peter Horby, he says that Omicron is milder and markedly less severe. So it seems to me that the tone of the debate is changing very rapidly. And it's significant that the US has reduced the isolation time from 10 days to 5 days. Now, we'd reduced it to 7 days. And in a sense, that's now where the debate is going. And whether it's NHS leaders, MPs, cabinet members, the pressure is going to be on how quickly can we reduce the isolation period from 7 days to 5 days, because now actually, not only in the NHS, but in other key public services, the big issue is it's more about the staff shortages from long periods of isolation, which in many cases are asymptomatic and therefore potentially unnecessary, relative to people who've actually got severe COVID. And I'm encouraged the way this debate is moving, and it won't be long, maybe it's starting now, when actually the debate's about when can asymptomatic people not have to isolate at all, but just to test daily. I mean, I don't know how long that debate may take, whether it's weeks, whether it's months, but that would be a really significant moment. And I must say, it is quite fun, quite interesting, seeing the pro-lockdown fanatics, how quickly they're going to cover their backside, how they're going to try and wriggle out of their previous positions. The likes of Nicola Sturgeon, the likes of Mark Drakeford, who've both essentially shut down Scotland and Wales over this period, the likes of Professor Neil Ferguson, I mean, why he's still involved, who, just to remind us all, he made the prediction that Omicron could lead to 5,000 deaths a day. Seriously? Let's hope that that was his last prediction. And let's hope, as a New Year present to us all, that he's fired, because he is simply not up to the job. And it's interesting, isn't it, seeing high-profile journalists, how they're starting to change their tone. The sort of the pro-fanatic, the pro-lockdown fanatic journalists, they're changing their tone. Of course, not admitting they previously may have got it wrong. How the BBC is going to change. And then the Labour Party. I mean, let's just remember, just before Christmas, Wes Streeting was blaming the government for dither and delay. He was calling for immediate restrictions, for certainty. I went back and checked. He was calling for more restrictions before Christmas. I suspect he may be getting many splinters sitting on the fence, trying to duck his previous doomsday predictions. I really do think that this is significant, it's encouraging, and we've all got to play a part in this debate as to what we should do in the new year, how quickly we can reduce that period of isolation. So give me your thoughts, your views. Do you think the worst is over? What would you like to see the isolation period reduced to? Do you think it's right at 7 days? Do you think we should follow the American example and reduce it to 5 days? How do you feel this is going to play out over the next 2 months? Bearing in mind, of course, a caveat to everything I've just said, we haven't yet had any real cold this winter. It's incredibly mild. It's extraordinary. No doubt some people will say that's global warming, but it is very mild at the moment. If we have a really harsh cold snap in January or February, what implications that may have, or maybe that reactivates normal flu, which we expect at this time of the year. So